Hello and welcome back to, I think it's the seventh RAW Sport Quaran-Stream that we've done, the last one of May at least. I am your head of sport, Josh Sim, and yeah, this has been, this is the last weekend of May rather, and it's obviously we've not had too much. We've been obviously covering exclusively the Bundesliga. But that is set to change, and we will address the big news that came out this week that will affect certainly football fans viewing in June, as well as covering the four Bundesliga games we have that have just kicked off this Saturday afternoon. So yeah, we will. We've got four games, so we'll start with. Let's start with Luke Edwards, who's former station manager, a regular now, and fast becoming our Hertha Berlin correspondent. Luke, how are you? How are you today?
They've become my German Real Betis. Yeah, I'm good, thank you. Yeah, I'm excited for this match. Some very interesting team news coming out. There's a lot of missing big players in this game, so might not be as entertaining as I was hoping for, but hopefully should still be a good match.
Yeah, there's certainly a few names on the team sheet that are that stand out for their absence or their inclusion as well. So, before we ask you about what you're expecting from the game, do you want to take us through the lineups?
Absolutely. So for Hertha Berlin, in goal is Rune Jarstein, back four of Peter Pekarek, Dedrick Boyata, Jordan Torunariga, and Max Mittelstadt. It's then a midfield double pivot of Marco Grujic, scored last week, and Persilian Skilbred. Then in front of them, we have Dodi Lukebakio on the right, Javaro Del Rosen on the left, and Vladimir Darida supporting Vedad Ibišević, who is up front. For Augsburg, it's Andres Luther in goal with a back four of Stefan Lichtsteiner, remember him, Marek Suchi, Felix Oduakai, and Iago. Then a midfield two of Rani Kadira and Carlos Gruezo, and supporting them in front of that, it's going to be Noah Sorenbazi, Ruben Vargas, Eduardo Leuven, and spearheading the attack, it's Sergio Cordova.
Yeah, so I think I think you noticed as well. The big headline for me, at least in terms of Hertha's lineup, is no Mateus Cunha, who's been he's been very good of late. Probably the standout player for that side, and yet he's not even on the bench, is he?
No, he's injured. So they tweeted before that it's not just him. Marvin Plattenhart's also out injured, and curiously, they're both out with concussions, which would suggest that they've had a bit of a banging of heads in training. So they're both out of the match. Cunha's going to be a massive miss because he's been their best player since they've come back. He's arguably been the best player in the Bundesliga since the football has returned. He's just looked absolutely on fire. Won a late penalty to get the equaliser against Leipzig in midweek. And he's just looked incredibly sharp and just spearheaded that front line really well. He's going to be a massive miss. Ibišević is going to have even more pressure on him to get the goals today. And we might even see a bit of Krzysztof Piątek. He might get a bit more of a run out with Cunha out of this game.
Yeah, and with the team news aside, obviously Hertha Berlin are in great form right now. Bruno Labbadia's had a brilliant start for his first three games. They've got they've scored 9 in their last 3, I think. And you know, this is a game you'd probably expect them to take the 3 points, but Augsburg are, they're not far behind. I think they're 2 places behind them. So it's a mid-table clash, but given Hertha's form at the moment, you would expect that they would go on to win. Although, as we found out, home advantage doesn't really count for much in the current football circumstances.
No, particularly in the case of Augsburg, who they beat Schalke away 3-0 last Sunday, and then they went and drew 0-0 to bottom of the table Paderborn in midweek. So it really doesn't seem to have the impact they used to have. That being said, I would fully expect Hertha to go and get the win. I don't think, even if this was actually at Augsburg's ground, can't remember the name of it. Even if it was there, I would still expect Hertha to go and get the result because they just seem like they're on fire. They've got Labadia just seems to have this bit of team cohesion going on, which is something they've really lacked all year, where they've had a lot of star quality but no means of knitting it all together and producing good performances. That seems to have changed. I suppose the main question would be, is this something that's going to continue? Looking into next season, you'd be expecting Hertha to certainly challenge for the top 6, maybe even for the top 4 if they can get a good run of form together. But the difference is, is this just a matter of, is this a new manager bounce, or is this something that they can sustain for the long term? And I think that's what we're going to be looking out for the rest of the season, is seeing sure Labadi's had this great start first 4 games. If they can continue this form to the end of the season and then use that to attract players and launch the project properly that they've already started, then they could be in a very good spot to go and establish themselves as a top Bundesliga side.
Yeah, absolutely, and as for Augsburg, they drew goalless draw, I think, with Paderborn in midweek, and they took I think they beat Schalke as well the game before that, so they've had some decent results. But again, considering that they're also mid-table side. Are you expecting a lot from them? Have you seen much of them recently?
I mean, I didn't see any of the game against Schalke, but I know just from looking at some of the performances, particularly if the Schalke goalkeeper has actually dropped today. They brought back Alexander Nubel after he was suspended from the squad, like de facto suspended. They just haven't looked good. And you do kind of wonder, is this just Schalke having a spell of relegation level form and other teams are just sort of capitalising it by being exceptionally average? Maybe that's more so the case, particularly when you take into account that this isn't a matter of Augsburg being a particularly great side. They drew to Paderborn at home. It's not the best result in the world. So yeah, I'm not expecting much from them today. I'm expecting them to give Hertha a bit of a go. They're missing Philip Max, who is probably their most kind of well-known player. Yeah. He's out injured. They've had to replace him with a young Brazilian Iago at left back. But they've got some good experience in that side, particularly like Stefan Lichtsteiner. Rani Khedira has been in the Bundesliga for God knows how many years. They've still got some good players, and they will pose a little bit of a threat to Hertha. Even if Hertha are the favourites, I still expect Augsburg will put up a fight and potentially claim a bit of an upset.
Absolutely, and we will come back to you as the game kicks off. Is anything of note so far, or very much early stages?
So my stream actually has deceived me, and it left up the Hoffenheim versus Mainz game. Wow. I've just switched over, and there's been injury to the Augsburg. Oh, is it a Hertha goalkeeper? I can't tell because he stood next to Ibišević. It was the Hertha goalkeeper. Jarstein has gotten injured, but he's managed to climb himself back to his feet. That didn't make any sense. Climb back to his feet. There we go. But it looks like he's gonna be able to continue for now. They have got their substitute goalkeeper ready, but hopefully they won't be having to use him.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, an early change, especially to goalkeepers, not ideal. And we will come back to you, Luke, in a bit to find out more about the game. Luke, you brought up Schalke, so let's go to Luke James, the editor of the sports section of the Ball. We haven't seen Luke in a while, but he's back. He's here to cover Schalke Werder Bremen. Luke, how are you doing today?
I'm good, thanks, Josh. Keep well. How are you?
I'm not too bad myself, thanks. So Schalke Werder Bremen, as Luke said, big news in terms of the home side's team news. Do you want to just run us through the lineups for both sides?
Yep. So the starting lineup for Schalke is 3-4-3 again. Alexander Nubel in goal with a back three of Kabak, Sane, and Tobadillo. Then in midfield, you've got John Joe Kenny at right back, Weston McKennie and Shopov in central midfield with Miranda out on the left-hand side. And then up front, you have a front three of Matondo, Gregorich and Caligruri for the home side, which is interesting. And then for Werder Bremen, it is a 4-1-2-1-2, so a 4-4-2 diamond. They have Pavlenka in goal, who was really impressive last week. Salesi at right back, Langkamp and Moisander in central defence, Friedel at left back, and then a midfield four of Vogt, Eggestein, Klassen and Bittencourt with Rashia and Sargent up front. There's quite an interesting US men's national team angle as well, with Sargent up against Weston McKennie, which is something to keep an eye out on.
Yes, absolutely. And Luke and the other Luke alluded to it earlier, but certainly Schalke, David Wagner's made a big decision in terms of the goalkeeping situation for Schalke. Alexander Nubel, who's not obviously played recently, he now comes back in. Obviously, he has an impending move to Bayern Munich in the summer. Are you expecting, I guess, when you're a goalkeeper and you're out of action, do you reckon he's going to be rusty? What do you reckon? And maybe, what can we expect from his performance?
It will be interesting because Nubel, obviously, he announced the move to Bayern earlier this year and then was dropped afterwards because he started making mistakes too. And he's replaced Schuber in the starting lineup, who has been pretty abysmal since the restart. So it's a case for David Wagner of, can it get any worse in terms of his goalkeeping situation? So it'll be really interesting to see how Nubel does today. And especially when you compare him, obviously, next year is going to be competing with Manuel Neuer for a starting spot at Bayern, which is going to be very, very difficult for him to get at the moment. So he needs a really, really good performance from Nubel. One thing to point out, though, in the first kind of 2-3 minutes, Gregoritsch, the Schalke forward, was given a yellow card for a late tackle on Vogt. He just caught him on kind of the shin. There's another player down, but I've missed who it is. So yeah, it's been an interesting start so far too.
Yeah, a very early yellow card that definitely he's gonna have to keep an eye on for the next 85 or so minutes or so. Schalke obviously not in great form. David Wagner, there's reports that he's under pressure. And against a Werder Bremen side and we've got the kind of ticker going down at the bottom, they are 17th, but they've been surprisingly more resilient than people have thought. Obviously a win against Freiburg away, which I don't think many people were expecting. So do you reckon this is a big chance for Werder Bremen to take points off a side who are clearly above them in the table and maybe even make a push towards trying to catch Fortuna Düsseldorf, who obviously play Bayern Munich? So we can safely assume that Düsseldorf are probably going to pick up a defeat, which could make that race for the 16th spot very interesting.
Definitely. It's a really, really interesting matchup for Werder Bremen because obviously they're one of the Bundesliga biggest teams. With the exception of Hamburg, spent the most time in the top flight. It's a huge, huge club, and they weren't expected to be in the position they are in at the moment. Schalke have, since the Christmas break, picked up fewer points than Werder Bremen, despite obviously the discrepancy in where they are in the standings. Yeah. So if Bremen are going to get themselves out of the relegation battle, this would be the day to try and make the step up and catch up with Fortuna Düsseldorf, who, to be honest, have a really, really tough running themselves. So if Bremen can win today, it'll be really interesting going down the stretch towards the end of the season.
Yes, absolutely. And we will come back to you, Luke, when if anything is going on. So thanks for that, and I will quickly run through. I'm going to be keeping an eye personally on the Mainz-Hoffenheim game, so I'll quickly run people through the lineups. Florian Müller is in goal for the home side. You got a back four of Riedel, Booker, Jeffrey Brumer, Hack, and Niakate. A double midfield pivot of Fernandez and Barrera, I think is his name. I might have got that wrong. And then an advanced three of Taiwo Awoniyi, I think he is, who is on loan from Liverpool. Boetius and Robin Quaison, who's the top scorer. I think he's over double digits in goals. And Mateta up front for the home side. And as for Hoffenheim, who looked very impressive in their win against Cologne midweek, Baumann is in goal. We've got a back four of Bogart, who's already been yellow carded as it turns out. Posch, Nordveit, and Zuber. Obviously, they're missing Benjamin Hubner, who got sent off against Cologne in midweek. And then you've got, again, another double midfield pivot of Sebastian Rudy and Samasiku. And then three advanced midfielders being Skov, Christoph Baumgartner, who was man of the match. He put in a man of the match performance against Cologne. He was superb. And Jacob Brun Larsen, who obviously used to play for Dortmund. And then up front, you got Dabur. So that should be an interesting game. You'd expect Hoffenheim to pick up the win. They were very impressive against Cologne, as I said, midweek. Christoph Baumgartner, I believe, is going to be a star in the Bundesliga. That's my personal opinion. And should be an interesting game against Mainz, who have looked good. They haven't looked too bad, but as you can see on the ticker, they are in 15th place. Not quite. I mean, they are in trouble of falling to the 16th. Not quite the 17th spot yet, but as we talked about with Luke, if Werder Bremen can get a result, a win, and presumably if Düsseldorf lose against Bayern, then Mainz could be dragged into that relegation battle. So, and again, I'm going to be keeping an eye on. And then we go to the final game, Wolfsburg against Eintracht Frankfurt, and I believe we will have, and I believe we're going to have Dammy covering that if you're ready.
Yeah.
Dammy, how are you?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm not too bad, thank you very much. Yeah, I just tuned in not too long ago when this Wolfsburg Frankfurt game. So far it's been okay. Nothing kind of like noteworthy to report of, But yeah, it's been a good game so far. That's what I'll say.
Yeah. And I'll give you just a moment to get like some of the team lineups together, unless you've got if you've got them. But I'll ask this question before we run through the lineups. Wolfsburg looked very well. I can't tell if it was because Leverkusen looked quite bad in midweek, but they lost 4-1 to Wolfsburg in midweek, and Wolfsburg are currently sixth spot. They're in the Europa League spot as well, so or at least chasing one. So you would think that they would be the favorites in this game, but then Eintracht Frankfurt, who people forget they were semi-finalists in the Europa League last season. Obviously, they've lost a few players from then, but it should be an interesting game.
Yeah, it should be an interesting game too. I think Eintracht also they played Bayern. I think maybe not the last game, but the game before that.
Yes,
I think I watched that game, and they, to be fair, they played quite well in that game. They gave them a few problems. It wasn't as so excuse me. It wasn't as it was just a free kick there for Wolfsburg. It was on target, but the goalkeepers managed to palm it out. But yeah, no, they played quite well. It wasn't as one-sided as the scoreline kind of suggested. They definitely did trouble the Bayern defense quite a few times. I mean, they did well. They even managed to. They were losing, I think, 3-0 at one point, managed to bring it back to like 3-2, but then eventually obviously Bayern went on and scored a few more goals. But yeah, so they've shown that they are able to play well amongst the big guns, and it doesn't get any bigger than Bayern in the Bundesliga. So I'm sure if they can at least show some sort of a performance like that in this game, then it should serve them well. But yeah, so with the lineups, with Wolfsburg, it's Castells in goal, a back four of Mbabu, Pongracic, Brooks, and Roussillon, a midfield of Schlager, Arnold, Brekalo, Stefan, and Victor, and up front is the top goal scorer, Vergust. And then for Frankfurt in goal is Trapp, the back three, of Abraham, Hasebe, and Hinteregger, with a midfield five of Chandler, Core, Rode, Sebastian Rode, and midfield three of Chandler, midfield four of Chandler, Core, Rode, and Kostic, and a front three of Kamada, Gasinovic, and Andre Silva.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't think there's a huge surprises in those team lineups. But like as we said, Wolfsburg obviously want to secure that European spot. Obviously, there's a few teams on their tail. And as for Frankfurt, I mean, we showed in the ticker, and I'm just going to find it. They're 14th. They're not, they're not in trouble yet. But results go, if they lose today and results elsewhere go against them, then then they have to really kind of think about really stepping up their performance and trying to avoid the chasing pack of those teams that we've got on there. So would you say it's a must win for both sides, given their respective kind of situations?
Maybe not quite yet. I think there's still. Well, I think after this there'll still probably be like 5 or 6 games left.
Yeah, I think so.
I think 5 games left. So, there's still like 15 points to play for in there. Maybe it was a case of where, only after this game they have maybe 2 or 3 games left. Then you could start saying it's a must win. But it still doesn't mean that, they shouldn't try and win it yet, of course. But, for both teams, they know that a win here definitely will put them both in a very good place in terms of achieving their respective targets in a sense. So, so I wouldn't really call it maybe a must win for both, but still definitely an important game for both teams.
Absolutely. And we will come back to you if anything happens throughout the day. So thank you for that, Dammy. We'll see you in a bit. Right, so there we go. All 4 games. We've got coverage of all 4, which is exciting. And yeah, as we said, we will be covering these games, and at halftime we will obviously do a bit of a roundup. We'll obviously talk about the big news coming from both the three nations, England, Spain, and Italy, in terms of the return of football coming up in June. So I believe I'm looking at the scores. I think there's been no goals of yet in the first 20 minutes or so, but some good stuff. I'm in from what I'm watching, mine's look particularly good, but Hoffenheim obviously have a threat on the counter attack. So let's jump in and talk to Luke Edwards, who we came to at the start. Luke, you've had, I think there's been, 18, 19 minutes have passed since we talked to you last. How's the game been?
Average, to be honest with you, Josh. It's been a bit scrappy. Rani Khedira has gone into the book for an interesting tackle on one of the Hertha Berlin attackers. Vedar Dabišević probably had the best chance of the half. There's some interesting goalkeeping from Andreas Luther. He came way too far out, tried to head it, didn't quite get his header clear correctly. It fell straight to Ibisevic, and he had to take it first time, but he didn't quite get enough connection on it. And it just sort of looped sort of over towards the goal, and Luther was able to recover and just pick up the ball very easily. That's been the only chance of the half so far. Just been dead cagey, which has kind of been a trademark, I should say, of the two Hertha games that I've watched so far, where they've kind of not really got into the game in the first half and then switched things on in the second half with a few substitutions and things like that. So they'll be hoping it's the same story, but not really much to report on in this game so far.
Yeah, absolutely. And maybe is it a case? Maybe I'm asking you tactically, I guess, but is it a case of how are Augsburg doing? Obviously, they know Hertha in great form and goal scoring form. Have they planned accordingly? Are they now kind of looking?
They've gone for the Harry Redknapp special of 2 banks of 4-4-4-2. Eduardo Löwen's kind of stepping up a little bit, providing a lot of pressure, giving Sergio Cordova the chance to just sort of sit on the last defender. He's tending to prefer to sit on Torino Riga over Boyata, who's probably the superior, more experienced defender. But again, they seem to have a game plan. They're keeping the pitch quite compact. They're not really pressuring Hertha in wide areas, which is quite interesting. I wonder how much the lack of Marvin Plattenhardt has to do with that, because I think if he was playing, they might be going a little bit more gung-ho in the wide areas. But for now, they're just sort of keeping themselves compact in the middle, making themselves hard to break down. And it seems to be working so far. But as we know, Hertha have the potential and the quality in their squad to kind of turn on at any moment. So, good start for Augsburg, certainly over Hertha. But, this game, not much to write home about. But as we know with Hertha, things could change at any moment.
Yeah, and obviously one name that certainly viewers in England will recognise playing for Hertha, Marko Grujic, who's been in good form. Accordingly, as Hertha have been playing well, so has he. And what have you made has he done anything noteworthy of yet? What have you made of his performance so far?
He's not done too much. He's kind of just sort of pressured. He's playing very much the defensive midfield role in this squad. I mean, Skobred's probably slightly more defensive minded, but Grujic is just sort of sitting back, spraying passes. He seems like a very useful player in terms of he's very good at recycling possession, but I don't think he's necessarily Liverpool quality. I think he's a perfectly serviceable midfielder in the Bundesliga, but I don't see him particularly as a special player, which is kind of what you're going to have to be to break into this Liverpool side. But nonetheless, I think if you're a Liverpool fan, you're watching this, you'd probably be seeing Grujic as the kind of player you could cash in for 25, 30 million pounds and use that to fund players you actually want to buy.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. And all major clubs have that conundrum, I guess, of when players shine for their loanee clubs, but they're not quite there for their parent club. So yeah, that's certainly his performance. Certainly, those supporting the mighty Reds will be keeping an eye on that one. As for, I mean, we mentioned briefly Augsburg, but and their kind of 4-4-2 like rigid pattern. How have they produced much of a threat going forward on the other end of the pitch, or has Hertha controlled that quite well?
I mean, they seem to have had a couple of counterattacks. They've got a lot of pace up front. Cordova seems to have the pace to get past the likes of Boyata and Torino Riga in the backline for Hertha. So they're trying to exploit that. And they seem to be very good at picking up the ball on the halfway line and then breaking at speed, which I think is a very good tactic in this game, where Hertha are deploying kind of a mid block. They're not really sitting too deep. So if you manage to get the ball in those areas, you're actually able to get straight at the back line. And I think that's exactly what Augsburg are looking at. But I say this, Hertha just trying to spread the pitch. They're doing it very well because they're trying to drag Augsburg out of the way, and the ball's about to come in. They've got the ball in the penalty area. This is the first time we've seen sustained pressure, and it's a good save, and it's a goal. We have a goal. And
We've got a goal.
That has come in from, I believe that's come from Javaro Dilrosun, the former Manchester City player, Dutch forward.
No.
Yeah, he's been playing off the left wing in this game. It seems like it was a very good finish. As I said, Augsburg playing very rigid, keeping very compact. And what Hertha were able to do is to actually stretch them. They got the ball out to Max Mittelstadt on the left-hand side. He whipped the ball in. Shot came in, I think, from Peter Pekarik, and it was relatively well saved from Luther, but he doesn't get the ball out far enough. And the ball just falls straight to Dilrosun, who sort of chips the ball. It's such a composed finish. It's a really good goal. You have to watch this. He manages to chip the ball over the on-rushing defender. I think it's Odua Kai. And he just then slams it into the top corner. It's a really well finished, really composed goal, particularly for a young player. And it's a great finish, and Hertha will be absolutely delighted with that. Yeah,
and he's obviously, as you said, he's played in Manchester City's academy, so he's certainly got the talent. And I've from what I know of him, it's just being able to produce consistently. But clearly, in that moment, he's shown the magic that he can produce when he's on song.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is exactly the kind of thing that Hertha will be needing, particularly with Cunha out injured. They need someone who's going to provide that little bit of a spark in their side. And boy, did Dilrosun do it there. Really good goal. And should hopefully spur on Hertha to go and win the rest of the match, because Augsburg were the side who were kind of reliant on counter-attacking if they were going to get a goal in this match.
Yeah.
They're going to have to shift their game plan drastically and maybe risk exposing themselves a little bit more to what is a very formidable attacking front line for Hertha.
Yeah, and this result, should it stay this way and should everyone else draw, I guess, would put Hertha tied on points with Freiburg and Schalke. So it'd be quite a remarkable position for them, considering they were certainly in the lower tier of the mid-table. Yes, which I mean, it's a mini resurgence for them under Labadia, who again is showing he has the magic touch when it comes to Hertha Berlin at the moment. So thanks for that, Luke. So we will come back to you in a bit. So 1-0 Hertha lead Augsburg. Let's switch over to Wolfsburg Frankfurt. So we'll switch over to Dami and just check in and see how that's going on. Dami, how's the game gone? There any team?
We have a penalty and it's a goal.
Oh, we have a penalty and a goal.
Yeah, it's a goal for Frankfurt. It's not quite. Yeah, okay. So it is a goal because my stream's lagging a little bit. But yes, what do you call his name? Andre Silva just went through 1-on-1, brought down, stepped up, and just managed to tuck it to the far corner of the goal, and it's 1-0 to Eintracht Frankfurt.
Wow. So we talked about Wolfsburg being the favorite, but Frankfurt take the lead. And from what you've made so far now, what would you do if you were Frankfurt? Because obviously, would you now kind of try and, because Wolfsburg now have to attack, right? That's the only way they're going to get back into this game. So as Frankfurt, would you settle for this currently, or would you go on and push for a second goal?
I think considering it's still quite early, well, you're not even into the second half there. I think you've got to push on for the second goal. You know what I mean? It would only make sense for Eintracht Frankfurt to do that. So yeah, I wouldn't advise for them to sit back on their lead and just wait for things to happen. They definitely have to push on for that second goal, in my opinion.
Yeah, and this is obviously going to, as we said, Wolfsburg now have to really push on and now attack them. What have you made from their attacking play? Do you think they're likely to break down the Frankfurt defense?
I think they're getting a lot of joy down the wings. It seems that's where they're most likely to make any inroads. in terms of inside the Frankfurt defense. So they've got to possibly target the wings as often as they possibly can, and hopefully hope that the final ball, when they do get down the sides of the Wolfsburg, of the Eintracht Frankfurt defense, the final ball is actually at least good enough to at least give the attacking players something to run onto. So if they can make more of them getting down the sides, then they have a good chance of being able to get back into the game, I feel.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll wait to see if they do that. So thanks, Dami, for that, and we'll come back to you in a bit. So Frankfurt take a 1-0 lead at Wolfsburg. As we've noted, home advantage doesn't seem to be a real thing at the moment, and I've just seen replays of it. Hoffenheim were given a penalty. Christoph Baumgartner, talk about people on form, he won a penalty in the box, but Steven Zuber had his efforts saved by Florian Müller. So that is a big moment for Mainz. Their keeper saving a penalty and keeping them from defeat as of now. But big chance. And Hoffenheim, we mentioned teams in the Europa League spot. They are obviously looking for a Europa League spot as well, just on the tails of Wolfsburg at the moment. So we've had multiple penalties so far in both in the games that we've had, and 2 goals in 2 of the games. I'll now come across to the other game that's goalless at the moment. Luke James, who's got Schalke, Werder Bremen. Luke, I mean, it's unlucky that we're the ones who haven't had goals yet. But what have you made so far? Is there one team that looks the more likely to get ahead on the score sheet?
It's been a really interesting, despite kind of the score line, even though neither teams look too likely to score. Coming into this game, if you didn't know which team was 9th and which team was 16th, 17th, you wouldn't get it the right way around. Schalke started the game really, really poorly. In the first 15 minutes, the possession was for Schalke, 76% for Bremen, and this is being played at Schalke's home stadium. In the first 15 minutes, there was only one shot of the game that went to Werder Bremen. And it's a story of contrasting styles. So Schalke are sitting really, really deep defensively. They're not engaging in the press until Werder Bremen get over the halfway line, which is basically allowing the visitors to dictate the play. And it's meant that they've had a lot of joy in the wide areas, kind of pushing their fullbacks really high as well. So it's been interesting. Kind of the last 10, 15 minutes, Schalke have improved a little bit. Weston McKennie has been busy in midfield. But apart from that, I would say that Werder Bremen definitely look the better team so far.
Yeah, and you mentioned Weston McKennie. I mean, with the injuries to Harrit and to Suat Serdar for the home side, certainly he has to take on a bigger role in that midfield. So we'll wait to see what happens there. But you mentioned how it's a fairly even game. So given both sides, how are they doing defensively? First of all, are they, as we talked to Luke, is it very much a rigid back four, 2 banks of 4, or are both teams are they actually vulnerable to a moment of magic or a counter-attack?
Schalke, when they're defending, are sitting really, really deep and getting really, really narrow. So they're playing what would be on the offensive transition a 3-4-3, but when they're defending, it's very much a 5-4-1, and even their kind of centre forward is sitting quite deep as well. So they're getting all 11 men behind the ball, and they look desperate not to give anything away. Although a quick throw in has just resulted in a goal kick anyway, so it's fine. But Schalke are sitting very deep, staying very compact. And defensively, they're doing quite well. Werder Bremen haven't created too much, despite the fact they've been the better team. Offensively, Schalke haven't really produced anything of note so far. They've got down the right flank a couple of times. John Joe Kenny has been pretty good, but nothing too spectacular so far. Bremen's defensive shape is interesting. They go flat back 4, and then Vogt, kind of when they're in possession, drops in and creates a third player just as a deep line playmaker, sort of. But yeah, Bremen, there's not much to say about them defensively because they haven't really done too much defending so far.
Interesting stuff, and we'll wait to see what happens if there's any change to that. So thanks for that, Luke. We'll come back to you in a bit. Going back, I'm just having a look at the Mainz-Hoffenheim game. Mainz have done I can tell you, Mainz have done most of the attacking at the moment. There's a free kick that's going to be awarded about 25-30 yards from goal. But as we had a missed penalty earlier from Steven Zuber of Hoffenheim. He missed from 6 yards, and now just watching a lovely nutmeg from Jacob Brun Larsen. In fact, multiple nutmegs have been going on in this game, which have kind of elevated it because there's not been too much to say other than it's a free kick for Mainz, and I will just keep it up. Oh, actually, we'll go back to no, we'll keep it on the free kick. I'll watch. I think it's Robin Quaison who's kind of gesturing. Although we've got a goal, so let's go to Luke James. Luke, we should have just stayed with you for a few more minutes and we would have got it live. But there's been a breakthrough in the game you're covering in Schalke Werder Bremen. Yeah,
a really, really good goal. Werder Bremen now 1-0 up on the road against Schalke. There's nothing Nubel could have done about it. It was a really, really good goal from Bittencourt, kind of drove through the midfield. So what happened was Tobido, who's on loan from Barcelona, far too many touches in central midfield, was dispossessed by Davy Klaassen. There was, I think, 2 or 3 players pressuring the possession. He should have just got rid of it. He didn't, lost possession. And then Davy Klaassen plays a really, really good through ball towards Bittencourt, who cuts inside from the right-hand side onto his left foot and curls one into the top corner. Nubel really didn't stand a chance, and it's probably a deserved lead.
Yeah, I mean, Bittencourt, I think he was the one who scored the winner against Freiburg as well, so he's very much in form. And you talk about Werder Bremen, they like to have those inverted wingers who can cut inside. I'll pose kind of the same question I posed to Dami, but if you're Werder Bremen and obviously you're in a relegation scrap at the moment, and if you hold on to this is obviously a great victory for you. Do you push on for another goal and maybe become more vulnerable at the back, or do you trust yourself to kind of see the result out with your defensive structure?
If I was Werder Bremen, I'd definitely 100% push on. Schalke look pretty poor going forwards, which is, again, as you said in the introduction, is quite surprising for David Wagner, considering how well he did with Huddersfield Town just a couple of seasons ago. At the moment, the way the shapes are interacting, so it's quite narrow from Werder Bremen, quite a wide shape for Schalke in terms of the number of players they've got out wide. And it's working really well for them because they're just pinning Schalke, having to go really, really compact. Even if they wanted to mount a counter-attack at the minute, they've just not been able to because Bremen have basically just snuffed anything out as soon as it started. So no, Bremen really need to keep playing on the front foot. And to be honest, they look much the better team. And as I said, if you didn't know where the two sides were at the start of the match, you would definitely get them in the wrong order.
Yeah, and obviously I'm now asking you about like, this is a 38 minute sample size here, but on the evidence of what you've seen so far, would you be confident that Werder Bremen could climb themselves out of their current predicament and maybe get six, maybe get to the playoff, maybe even, stay in the division and force one of the 2 teams above them to kind of take their place?
On this performance, definitely. They've looked really, really good. And if you look kind of through the fixtures that they've got coming up, so they have Eintracht Frankfurt at home on the 3rd of June, then they play Wolfsburg at home, and then they have an away game on the 13th of June against Paderborn, who are currently bottom of the standings. After that, they have Bayern Munich at home. And to end the season, they have Mainz on the road. So if you look at those fixtures, Frankfurt aren't in incredible form. Wolfsburg are a good team, that'll be tough. But the matches against Paderborn and Mainz will be absolutely massive. And if they keep playing like this, I wouldn't put it past them getting more results. Fortuna Düsseldorf have a pretty tough run in. So if they keep going like this, I could really see them doing quite well. In terms of players who are looking good today, Josh Sargent up front is pressing really well. He looks really, really active. And that's kind of where the goal came from, because the press from Bremen is really centralised and it's really focusing on basically not letting Schalke play through the middle of the pitch. And they're having a lot of joy. So going forwards, it will be interesting to see. Schalke have kind of a free kick in a deep area, so they'll just look to swing one in. But so far, Schalke haven't really produced much at all.
Yeah, there's certainly a team. We talk about teams that are in form. They're certainly the complete opposite on the opposite spectrum. So it'll be interesting to see if David Wagner can inspire his team in the last 5 minutes of the half or so, or maybe he'll need a halftime team talk. But as Luke said, 1-0 Werder Bremen. In another game where home advantage has been nullified, to say the least, and we will come back and talk to Luke in just a bit. So there we go. I'm not surprised, but I believe I've got the only game which is goalless. Yes, I do, which is not a huge surprise, but certainly some interesting ramifications for both the bottom of the table and in the Europa League spot currently as it stands. And as I just watch, I believe I think it's the right back for Mainz, and I'm just going to try and find his name if I can. I'm just going to find his name. I think it's Rido Baku. I think he comes close there and forces Baumann into a great save on this near post. Hoffenheim have made a change actually, and Brun Larsen has come off, and I'm not sure if he was struggling with an injury or if it's a tactical change or whatever. But he's come off, and on comes. Let me get this. Bebu. Bebu has come on for Hoffenheim, so they've been forced to an early change. They've also got 3 bookings so far, which is, I mean, that's quite early to have a significant part of 3 members of your team on a booking already. That is danger zone already. And as for Mainz, they've got 2 of their back 4 have already been booked. So who knows? There were a few red cards midweek that swung games. Hoffenheim certainly know that because they had Benjamin Hubner sent off. So we'll see if that does anything going forward for this game, if someone ends up being sent off or not. But a quick score update around the grounds. So we have Frankfurt, obviously a 1-0 up away at the Volkswagen Arena, away at Wolfsburg. We got Hertha Berlin, who are 1-0 up at the Olympiastadion against Augsburg. Goalless, as I said, between Mainz and Hoffenheim at the Opel Arena. And then at the Veltins Arena, it is 1-0 Werder Bremen, who take a 1-0 lead over the hosts, Schalke. In terms of the table, if there are major changes from this, as we said, as we were talking to Luke, Luke Edwards had to jump into tied with Freiburg in the 8th, 9th spot. Schalke, if they lose, they drop down to 10th, and Frankfurt jumped to 12th. So they were 14th at the start of the match day. They will jump to 12th place and push towards securing their place for next season in the German top flight. So round about 5 or so minutes to go, or 2 or 3 minutes to go in the first half. Let's kick back. Well, let's go to the game that produced the first goal of the Saturday, and that was Hertha at home to Augsburg, and we've got Luke Edwards watching this game. Luke, has there been a response from Augsburg, or has Hertha looked to push on for that second goal?
It's all Hertha, to be honest, Josh. Augsburg got absolutely nowhere near this Hertha side. They just seem to have found them out completely in terms of, I've said at the start of the match, they were so reliant on keeping the pitch compact and not having the big switches of play from Hertha. But Hertha Berlin have just been having this really good habit of just very quickly switching play from left to right. And all that's doing is dragging the Augsburg defenders out of position, or out of where they want to be, and they're whipping balls into the box. And Ibišević has had 3 chances to score. He hasn't managed to take any of them because there's been some really good goalkeeping on behalf of Augsburg, but it's really not looking good for them. They're going to absolutely pray that they can get to half time without conceding a second goal, and then hope that in the second half they can come back a little bit stronger, because they have been absolutely annihilated in this first half. And to be honest, I think Hertha will be disappointed that they haven't been able to kill the game off. They've had multiple chances to go and grab that second goal, and they haven't taken them. So they'll be desperate to go and grab another goal in the second half.
Yeah, and sorry, I was a bit distracted. I just watched Hoffenheim literally turn a defensive corner into an attacking chance, which was it's always, an entertaining and exciting time when that happens. Unfortunately, Skov shot wide there, but as you said, it all hurt us so far, and they just, if you look, and then this is a bit more bigger picture, but if you look at their performances over the last few games, Labadia has clearly inspired something, and they suddenly have transformed into a different team.
Yeah, and I think the key difference is that there's A, cohesion, and B, confidence. These are players who, I mean, even with the big switches of play, these are part or moments in games that require you to have a bit of confidence to go for that kind of Hollywood pass. And they just seem to have a real positivity in the squad. They're not really dallying on the ball. They're trying to move the ball quickly, get the ball forward, get the ball into wide areas to whip it in towards Ibashevich. And there seems to just be general, really positive movements in the side altogether. And they've obviously got a lot of quality. But it just seems that Labadia, in the very little time that he's had, he's been able to get cohesion and confidence in this squad, which, you know, when you've got a good group of players like this, is only going to be a recipe for success. So, yeah, just been massively impressed with Hertha in this first half. They've really kicked on after the first goal, and Augsburg really can't get near them at the minute.
Yeah, and actually, I'm just gonna put this up. There's been a goal in my game, so finally we've got goals in every game. Hoffenheim have taken the lead away at Mainz, and it is the substitute Bebu who just takes two defenders out with a lovely touch and then just rolls it past Florian Muller. So we've got goals in all the games, and sorry to cut you off there, Luke. And we will. Yeah, so that's his fourth goal of the season, and Hoffenheim, who could capitalize on Wolfsburg from Wolfsburg's current situation of losing to Frankfurt. So that should be an interesting one in the race for Europa League spot. So Luke, we'll come back to you probably at half time as games kind of wrap up in a sec. But yes, Mainz 1-0 down. And I believe now it is halftime at that game, and it is indeed going to be halftime in all of the four games, which are all 1-0 leads. 1-0 leads, three games with the away side in front, which just further kind of outlines the lack of impact that home advantage now has, given with the lack of fans, obviously, which has been a fascinating kind of development that we've seen in the Bundesliga, and we'll see if it translates into other leagues at the moment. But as I said, I think games are coming around to half time or so, and I am just going to look up I'm just going to give our panel a little bit of a breather, and I'm just going to do a bit of a halftime score update. So as I just look for it, obviously. And I think all the games are coming up to halftime. So yeah, I'm safe enough to make it without anyone scoring a last minute goal to upset the update. But there we go. So Hertha Berlin, as Luke Edwards said, 1-0 up at Augsburg. Hoffenheim now lead 1-0 away at Mainz, thanks to that Bebu strike. As Luke James told us, Werder Bremen now lead Schalke 1-0 thanks to Leonardo Bittencourt's strike. And as we talked to Dami earlier, Frankfurt lead Wolfsburg 1-0 thanks to an Andre Silva penalty, the late kickoff being Bayern Munich against Dusseldorf. In the second division, Arminia Bielefeld, I'm going to be so bad at pronunciation, they beat Holstein Kiel 2-1 away. The game between Karlsruhe and St. Pauli finished 1-1, and then there was another draw with Nuremberg holding Bochum to a goalless draw, and Sandhausen beat Hanover 3-1, and I've just recognized John Guidetti. If people remember him from Man City in his La Liga days, he scored for Hanover. Unfortunately, it was merely a consolation goal. There are 3 games in the Costa Rican Premier Division, which I don't know how many people are going to watch that. Maybe if you're betting, maybe you want to keep an eye on that, but that's later tonight. And just having a look at if there are any other games going on. The Israeli Premier League will also kick off this evening. Both Tel Aviv teams, in fact, are in action, as are both Haifa teams. If you're interested in that league, I know we like to push the global game at RAW Sport, but yeah, there we go. So Israel, Costa Rica, and Germany. There's the 3 leagues that have action going on at the moment. So with it being half time, I think we can bring back our panel, and indeed we'll bring everyone back. And 1-0 in everyone's game, so an interesting start at the moment. And indeed, Luke, we'll start with you, and I guess I want to kind of plug everyone's kind of latest project. So we'll start with Luke. Ball Sport, you were watching the Zwei Bundesliga game earlier today.
Yeah, so I watched the game between Holstein Kiel and Arminia Bielefeld. It was really, really interesting. So Bielefeld at the minute are top of the table and have just gone 8 points clear at the top with the win today. It was a 92nd minute goal from a substitute that won them the match, and it had looked like the game was going to end in a draw. So that was a huge win for them. At the start of the season, they weren't really in the reckoning to be in the kind of conversation for promotion. That was kind of mainly divided between Stuttgart and Hamburg, who are the two biggest teams in the division at the moment anyway. So that was really, really big for them. Tomorrow, Hamburg and Stuttgart both have winnable games. So if they kind of slip up tomorrow, it will really look like Arminia will end up winning the Bundesliga 2 title, which will be interesting to see.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, we talk about the relegation battles being tight at the bottom of the Bundesliga, but certainly at the top of the Spy Bundesliga, there's an interesting race there. And speaking of, I guess, the other leagues, the other football leagues, there was big news on Thursday. But before we get to that, Dami, I know you were involved in a documentary recently, a football documentary that you kind of produced. Do you want to tell people a bit more about that?
Yeah, no. So I'm part of I manage one of the intramural teams on campus, also known as 49 FC. We believe we are actually not. We believe we know we are the best team on campus. So because of that belief, we felt it would be a disservice to the rest of the Warwick population if we didn't give people an insight to how, you know, we became so-called the best team on campus and kind of like what goes on in our, you know, day-to-day life and how our season kind of panned out, you know. So I just kind of thought of an idea, managed to get a team of cameramen to kind of do it in a Man City all or nothing kind of vibe, you know. So get a cameraman to follow us for basically for the whole of the season, essentially. And you just get to know the team well a lot better. You know, you get to know the players a bit better. You know, the history of kind of like how we started, because like we're not really affiliated, not really, we're not affiliated with any like society at all. It was just a group of boys who just kind of like came together to create a team. And then it just keeps on, and which has been building on for almost like I think 5 years now, essentially. So so we just, you know, felt like it would be a good thing to do, and it came out quite well. You know, we're quite happy with how it comes out, you know. So that was just kind of essentially what it is. So we decided to call it Brotherhood 49 FC, the long road ahead. So yes, if you've got time, you can just type that in on YouTube and you'll be able to, you know, watch a more or less knockoff version of Man City's All or Nothing documentary.
There we go. And I turn to Luke Edwards. Obviously, your podcasting partner, Joe Spagnoli, he's been under a few deadlines recently, but it's safe to assume that Eurozone, there will be more content coming out once those are over.
It's nowhere near as exciting as what Dami's been up to, but we've been taking a bit of a hiatus while we finish our assignments and things like that. I'm hoping to, La Liga's back pretty much next week. So we're hoping that by the time, my exams finish on the 6th or the 5th, something like that. I can't remember which one. And then La Liga's back soon after that. So hopefully be able to make some content just before that starts. And just really excited. It's a really good time to be finishing up because there's going to be loads of football to watch over the summer, which I'm really excited for.
Yeah, and actually, I forgot to mention to the other Luke, James, but you had an interview recently with former West Ham player Vachon. Is he former or is he on loan? I just want to get this correct.
Former, so he left on a free transfer in last summer.
Yeah, and he plays for Atletico Ottawa. Is that right?
Yeah, Atletico Ottawa. That was really interesting to speak to him. So he was kind of tipped to be one of the next kind of really good players to come out of West Ham's academy. He played for England under 17s when he was like 15. Was in the same England squad as Jonathan Leko and one of the young Arsenal players at the minute. So like he was really well rated at the time. Suffered quite a few injuries kind of recently. And then in the last year of his contract with West Ham, got sent out on a really short loan, like 3-month loan to Newport County, and was involved in the FA Cup game against Leicester City. And you'll remember that Newport won the game in like the last 10 minutes from a penalty. And it was Vashon Nervu who won the penalty for them. So yeah, I caught up with him about kind of his career so far, and what it's been like to move to Atletico Ottawa and kind of life under lockdown as an athlete. And it was really interesting to talk to him because obviously Atletico Ottawa are a new team in a new league. So the Canadian Premier League is only in its second year of existence, and Atletico Ottawa only came into it they've not started yet. So it was really interesting to talk about that. And Atletico Ottawa as well are really interesting because they're part of the Atletico Madrid kind of group. So then it was kind of interesting to see how a player who's so young, moving abroad, kind of doing something really different, because he had offers to play kind of lower league in England, but he kind of sat it out and took an opportunity for something really, really different. So that was interesting.
Yeah, there we go. And so there we go. Everyone's got exciting projects or has been working on exciting stuff at the moment. So go check everyone out. Dami's documentary on YouTube, Luke obviously Eurozone podcast on Mixcloud, and Luke James is it Bore.com, Bore.org/sport. I think that's it. Yeah, there we go. But yeah, and obviously keep it with us as we, bring more of the football coming up. And indeed, that is a nice transition into the news on Thursday that we got that three of the big five leagues coming back in June. So I believe the first one is the Liga, and that's 11th of June, and they're planning to start with the Seville derby, and that is going to kickstart. I believe they're planning to do games every day until the 19th of July, which is ambitious, but that's what Javier Tebas wants to do. And then talking about the Premier League in more detail, I'm just going to grab my notes here. They plan to start on the 17th of June on Wednesday. 2 games: Aston Villa versus Sheffield United and Manchester City against Arsenal. It will then be followed by a full weekend of games. 4 broadcasting partners plan to show the games with obviously Sky Sports and BT Sport, but also Amazon Prime and the BBC. So 4 games will be free to air there. Sky Sports will also show 25 of their games free to air. It's understood that 6 weekends and 3 midweek rounds of action will be required. There are staggered kickoff times. I'm not going to read all of them, but essentially you're likely to get a game a day, really, as well. And clubs have agreed to finish the league by the 25th of July, and players are currently in contact training phase 2 of Project Restart. And of the recent tests, there's been 12 positive coronavirus tests out of the 2,752 of them. So I'll start with Luke Edwards. But the Premier League, we now have an official date. We now know it's coming back. And what lessons do you reckon the Premier League can learn from the Bundesliga's restart as it prepares for a restart?
I think certainly in terms of, it's difficult because I think a lot of it is just common sense, like just doing things like making sure that people don't, just things that don't undermine the public message. So making sure that you have players who are on the bench, who are sat in the stands kind of 2 meters from each other, things like that. I suppose as well, kind of being, I think probably the biggest thing they can learn is actually being quite strict on the quarantine measures put in place. I know that I believe it actually might have been the Augsburg manager got suspended for a couple of weeks because he breached lockdown rules to go and buy toothpaste.
Yes, that was him.
Yeah.
Yes.
So things like that, I actually think are actually quite good, because you need to make sure that you're showing that you're going above and beyond to protect the safety of the players in these situations. I think that's probably the biggest thing that they can take from it. The main thing we have seen as well is competition and integrity has been kind of kept in check, while also making sure that there haven't been excessive injuries. So I definitely think bringing in 5 substitutions per match goes a long way, particularly when you're rushing in players to play 2 or 3 times a week. It's absolutely important that you make sure that they have the opportunities to get the players rested and rotated as much as possible. But no, it's been really good to watch. I've really enjoyed watching all of these games. people were sort of doubting the impact of the absence of fans would have. And I mean, the fans do make football 100% better, don't get me wrong, but it's still more than watchable without them. And that's something that we can definitely put up with for the time being before we get fans back in stadiums and getting proper matches and proper atmosphere back.
Yeah, and Luke, James, obviously it looks like, at least, and I know you've reported on as well, it looks like there'll be games every day, at least staggered on different time slots. Are you excited to have Premier League action kind of every day and, pretty much kind of thrust into this rush and flow for the next kind of month or so? And what are you excited for when it returns?
Yeah, I think it's going to be great. It's going to be really refreshing to actually have something to talk about for a change, which will be really good to see. In terms of what I'm looking forward to, I think kind of the title race is clearly, it's done. Liverpool are going to win the title. At the bottom is much more interesting. So the bottom six, and I say this from a self-interested perspective as well, obviously you've got West Ham, Watford, Norwich, Aston Villa all competing to try and stay in the league. And I think that will be so interesting to see what happens there. In terms of kind of Luke's previous point on sporting integrity, I think the situation with Watford could be quite problematic if the likes of Troy Deeney don't return to training soon, because he is Watford to an extent. So he's going to be so important. And if he doesn't go back to Watford, it will be a huge shame for them, especially if they do go down. Not that I knock in his decision at all. I think he's doing the right thing, but that's something to take note of. In terms of the relegation battle, what I think will be interesting, and there's a certain irony to this given how much Karen Brady was campaigning to not have neutral venues, is the lack of home field advantage. So West Ham, Karen Brady were very, very adamant that they would not accept neutral venues because it would undermine the integrity of the competition. But as we've seen in the Bundesliga, the only team to really do particularly well at home so far has been Borussia Dortmund, and obviously they lost the other day against Bayern Munich. So at the bottom of the table, it could be interesting to see how the teams that play more defensively will fare, because, and again, the game I've been watching today, Schalke versus Werder Bremen, Schalke have sat so deep, and when you sit deep, you really need the crowd to kind of like spur you on, and through no fault of anyone, of course, that isn't there anymore. So the teams that kind of attack more and try and get in your face seem to have a bit of an advantage. So I'm actually quite intrigued to see how Norwich do after the restart, because I think their style of football will lend itself well to playing behind closed doors.
Yeah, absolutely. And Dami, I think we've touched on it a bit, that how these bottom teams are going to have to be step up. But are there any players or teams in your mind that need to start this restart as well as they can be and keep that up for the next 9 or so weeks or so? Are there any teams or players that come to mind that need kind of a big turnaround? And we have, hang on. Okay, I'm just going to drop Dami out for a sec. He's frozen, or is he back? Have we got you? Oh, no, I have no idea. I'm just going to drop Dami out for a sec there. I'll just check if we're back. But obviously so the Premier League's back, and we're all very excited for it. I have to say, as someone from for someone who's running this broadcast, it's going to be a challenge given the staggered broadcasting time slot, and it'll be interesting to see how the league markets itself, with the likes of La Liga returning, with Serie A also returning. We didn't mention that is back June 20th. There's Coppa Italia as well, so a lot of action and a lot of teams coming back, and and we've got Dami back. Dami, I think you heard my question, but I'll just repeat it again. Which players and clubs do you reckon need a big return? Which ones need to hit the ground running and kind of overcome the rust as quick as possible?
I think the first one that comes to mind would probably be Bournemouth. From what I remember from the season ended, they seemed to be kind of on a really downward spiral in a sense. It looked like they were just kind of just taking hits after hits in terms of performance and also results at the same time. So yeah, they probably need it more than most because no one probably would have expected Bournemouth to probably be in the position that they were at this moment in time. You probably said they are in a sense the biggest underachievers in the league, at least up there anyways, in terms of what they've shown they're capable of over the past few years that they've been in the Premier League. And it's not even like they lost that many key players as well during the summer. They managed to keep hold of Fraser despite a bit of interest from Arsenal and other teams. They kept hold of what do you call his name? Josh King as well. Still also have Callum Wilson as well. Obviously it's a shame they lost Brooks through injury at the start of the season. But regardless, you'd have thought they would have still been at least strong enough to maybe at least possibly mount a possible Europa League place, but at least certainly be like safe around midway in the table. But obviously where they are right now is probably unknown and unheard of for them. So yeah, they'll be the first team that comes to mind in terms of probably needing a really kind of strong start when the league resumes again.
Yeah, definitely. They're definitely in trouble of losing their Premier League status that they definitely climbed all the divisions to get to, and yeah, they're definitely a team in trouble given their table position. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how the Premier League does it. I think games are back. The Bundesliga games have now kicked off the second half, so we'll just drop everyone back into back for the second half. We'll get the old ticker up. And yeah, as I just said, keep it on Raw Sport. Follow our Twitter. I think it's in the video description down below. Our Facebook page. If you're a Warwick student, join the group. We will keep you updated, and we will try and bring as much coverage as we can to all the now 4 leagues that we'll have eventually once Syria joins and the other 2 as well. We will try and do our best to keep an eye on the action on all 4 leagues, as well as the championship, because we still don't know the championship when they are coming back. We have not heard from them yet, so that there's all that to play out. But second half of the game, of the 4 games we have are underway. A reminder, obviously you see the scores below, but a reminder that Frankfurt lead 1-0 away at Wolfsburg. So likewise, Hoffenheim at Mainz and Werder Bremen at Schalke, and then Hertha Berlin are 1-0 up at home to Augsburg. So we'll go to each person and just each person on the panel and just gauge their thoughts in the second half and what needs to change and what needs to stay the same. So Luke Edwards will bring in, I guess for your game at least, Hertha will want more of the same, just a bit more of a clinical edge. And if you're and on the Augsburg point of view, you need to find a way to find a goal scoring threat and find an opening in the Hertha defense.
Yeah, and they've tried to. Well, they're already making changes. They brought in Marco Richter. He's come on for Edouard Leuven, and veteran striker Florian Niederlechner. That's a bit of a mouthful. He's come off Sergio Cordova. Neither of the 2 players who came off really got into the game at all in the first half. So it's no surprise that they're trying to change things up a little bit. Augsburg need a goal. They need to come out and they need to, actually start attacking Hertha a little bit more. But that's going to leave them massively open to the counter-attack, and Hertha have some very good forwards, as we mentioned earlier. So they could be in a lot of trouble. I still expect Hertha to take the win, but if Augsburg can claw a goal back sort of early on in this half, then who knows what could happen. But I'm still fully expecting a win for Hertha in this one.
Yeah, and we'll definitely keep an eye on that. It'll be a remarkable turnaround for Hertha if they get this win, considering what they've done in recent games. So thanks for that, Luke. We'll come back to you in a bit. We will now jump to the other Luke, with Schalke, Werder Bremen. I guess the teams that are the most polarized, you could say, in the table. But as you've seen, it's the away side and certainly the team at the bottom certainly more than holding their own. What is it a case of now? Schalke just need to kind of lift the intensity in their attacking play and find a way past the away side if they're going to get a way back into this game?
Yeah, definitely. Schalke need to start. I think where Schalke's issues lie at the minute is that they're sitting too deep. They need to press higher up the pitch to win the ball higher, and then they can kind of get something going. They made a couple of subs at half-time, Schalke. So Tobito and Matonda have gone off for Benitio and Oxpeaker. So it's interesting to see there. I think they might change the shape a little bit in possession. So they're trying to push more people forward at the moment. So it'll be interesting to see. Yeah. So what they've done is they've gone back to a back four now, Schalke. So they're trying to get more players involved in the attacking third. I think at the moment it's looking a little bit like a 4-2-3-1, which will match up quite well against the 4-1-2-1-2 that Bremen are going with. So it'll be interesting to see there. But yeah, you're right. Schalke need to up the intensity in the second half. And I think Weston McKennie will be key to that, is, again, kind of sitting in the central midfield and he's trying to dictate the play. So far this season, he's been criticised, especially a lot by the US media, about his awareness off the ball. So it'll be interesting to see if he'll be able to drive Schalke on in the second half.
Yeah, and certainly, both sides. That I wouldn't say there's a lot at stake, but both sides certainly need the 3 points for different reasons. One to arrest a run of bad form, and the other one to climb themselves out of a relegation scrap. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there. Thanks for that, Luke. We'll come back to you if anything major happens at the Veltins Arena, and we'll go back finally to the Wolfsburg Frankfurt game, and Dami we'll get his thoughts on the second half. Dami, Wolfsburg were the team that you thought were going to win this. They're now behind. They have 45 minutes to turn it around. What do you think needs to be done for them to get some goals and really turn the game around from defeat?
I think they just need to do what I kind of said earlier on, which is they've shown some really penetrative threat when getting in down the sides of the Frankfurt defense. So before half time, they got in quite in a few occasions, especially Kevin Mbabu and Ruslan as well. So Mbabu had one where he was played in. Just needed to cut it back to Vergus, and he has a shot on goal from around the penalty area, but he's cut back, goes straight to the Frankfurt defender. They also had another one where Ruslan went in down the left hand side, managed to clip a ball back into the back post. Brooks heads it back into the danger area, and there's the main striker Vergus, and he has a swipe at it the first time, doesn't connect well, but the ball lands to his feet again, gets it second time, shifts it out, has another shot at goal again, but Kevin Trapp comes down and smothered it very well. So yeah, they've shown a lot of basically all of their chances that they've created have come down from their fullbacks, in a sense. So if they can continue to get those two in, but crucially make sure that the final ball is at least of decent enough quality, something to give the attackers to put their body towards, then yeah, I feel like that will probably look like their best chance of being able to get back into this game and even possibly winning it as well.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see what happens there. Of course, Frankfurt, they need the points to kind of just ease themselves a bit away from the relegation zone. So it'll be interesting to see what kind of approach they take. And yeah, we'll see what happens. So thanks for that, Dami. We'll come to you if anything major happens at the Volkswagen Arena. As for Hoffenheim Mainz, the game I'm sort of keeping an eye on, sort of not. I mean, a bit of both, but they've made changes at the half as well. So I'm just going to look for them quickly. And here we go. I've got them. And yeah, so Mainz have made 3 changes in this game already. So Mateta, Bertius, who was booked early in the game, and Hack have come. All 3 have come off. They've brought on Onisiwu, Brosinski, and Ustanali have all come on for Mainz for the home side, and for the away side, Steven Zuber, who missed a penalty early on in the game, he's come off, as has Bogard, who was booked early in the game, and in their place come Bikacic and Akpogoma. Oh my goodness, Akpogoma. He has come on as well. So they've also made 3 substitutions. So 2 each left for both sides. As I watched mine take a corner and is headed away from the Hoffenheim defense. The volley does not quite fall, and then it's deflected, and Baumann should make sure of it. And he just a bit of a dicey moment when a keeper kind of rushes out and tries to keep the ball in play under pressure from the Mainz attack, but he does just enough to do so. So all the games 1-0. Some might call that the most dangerous scoreline to exist in football. Some might disagree. So, but certainly a lot at stake for the relegation friend sides, as well as the teams in mid-table looking to make a late push up the table and definitely put on a bit of a show. Now, so it obviously affects their financing. If they get a high placing, they'll get more money, I guess, from finishing in a high place as well. So we will see how that shakes out. And as we said, we will. This is, I guess, and this is the penultimate kind of weekend of the German only Super Saturday, and we will see if the Premier League and when La Liga, Premier League, Serie A come back. We will definitely have coverage on those games as a bit of a reminder there. But yeah, if you're watching along, send your questions, comment along to the stream. Follow our socials. It's in the video description down below on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. And if you're from Warwick, join the RAW Sport 2019-20 group just to get the latest on our broadcasts and streams. So let's flick it back to Wolfsburg, Frankfurt. Let's go back to Dami. Let's go back to you. So, I mean, I know we briefly came to you, but like just in a minute ago, pretty much. But like, what have you noticed any change? Have you noticed any difference in the attitude and the tactics of both teams?
No, it's been more of the same. It's still been, Wolfsburg trying to get back into the game. They are definitely having the lion's share of possession. Okay, hold up. Here's Philip Kostic. He's in a good position. Again, he can't quite pull the ball back into a dangerous area. But yeah, no, it's been Wolfsburg having the lion's share of possession. Like I said, they've not been able to just get that final kind of cutting edge. That last bit of quality to help them get back into the game. But they are, like I said, they have shown some signs, they have shown some promises, and I do believe it should only be a matter of time before they will be able to at least generate one good, very, very good opening. Now it will be a different question whether they'll be able to take that opening or not, but they are playing well so far. I think in terms for Frankfurt, obviously they are the away side, so they're kind of sitting back as well. Also as the underdog as well, so they are kind of sitting back, just waiting for, I guess, that counter-attack opportunities, just as they nearly had a few seconds ago. So they're just waiting for those moments. And when you've got, Andre Silva and Philip Kostic as well, quite technical players who've got at least good amount of pace on them, then it does seem like, an understandable tactic to take up in this position as well. So yeah, it will be an interesting game. It looks like it's going to be a case of attack versus defense for probably most of this second half as well. So it'll be interesting to see who comes out on top.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see who will come up trumps
it's a goal.
Game. Oh, we have a goal.
It's a goal.
Hang
it's
on,
a goal. Yes. We have an equalizer
an equalizer.
As I was suspecting. Yes, and it's probably come from the danger man himself, Kevin Mbabu.
Wow.
He has yes, he's been the best player for Wolfsburg, to be fair. Probably the best player on the pitch, if I'm being honest with you. And yeah, he's got the equalizer. So it's a free kick on the right hand side for Wolfsburg. Max Arnold takes it. It delivers a lovely in-swinger ball in, lots of pace, lots of accuracy, so much whip on it, And all a Wolfsburg player has to do is just make sure they get a good connection on it. And that's exactly what Mbabu does. Gets a good head on it and directs it towards goal. Possibly Trapp could have saved it. You know, he seemed like he got 2 hands on it as well. Maybe the ball came at too much pace, but you would hope on a good day that your goalkeeper would have been able to, you know, palm that kind of over the bar, but he's not able to do that, and he palms it off the underside of the crossbar and it goes in. And yes, it's 1-1 now. It's 1-0. So interesting to see how both teams react to this news. Do Wolfsburg continue on the ascendancy, or are Frankfurt able to, you know, come back into this game?
Yeah, and we will definitely. I mean, yeah, we'll see what happens. I mean, both sides fairly even. I'm guessing from the play, and it will now force Frankfurt to kind of step out a bit and stay away from that defensive structure. But it'll be interesting to see what happens. We'll come back to you, Dami, should anything happen. Thanks for that. So 1-1 Wolfsburg, Frankfurt, and in the Mainz game, Mainz did put the ball in the back of the net, but I believe it's been ruled out, and I'm going to guess it's offside. I haven't really been able to get a chance to see the whole thing turn out, but I think I believe it was offside. So it will, even though the scoreboard in the stadium still says 1-1, so they're going to have to change that, the stadium operator. But Hoffenheim will still lead 1-0 in that game. So every other game is 1-0, aside from the Wolfsburg-Frankfurt game. And let's bring Luke James. Luke, I'm reading a tweet from renowned German football expert Ralf Honigstein. He says, 4 words, painful watching Schalke again.
To be fair, in the second half, they've actually been a little bit better. They've actually had the better of the play in the second half, partly because of some of the substitutions. So at halftime, Bittencourt was substituted for Bremen for Yuya Asaka. I'm assuming that was a fitness thing because he was playing really, really well. Since then, a couple of substitutions as well for Schalke. So Weston McKennie was subbed for Bujulab, and McKinney was absolutely furious. It was actually quite funny, his reaction, so that was a little bit odd. And a couple of really big chances for Schalke, and they're on the attack again. So on 53 minutes, Pavlenka was forced to make a really, really good save. And then on 57 minutes as well, Gregoritz had a great opportunity and missed just over the crossbar. So Schalke getting a little bit better, but this game really feels like a relegation scrap. It really feels like a relegation 6-pointer, even though Schalke aren't in that conversation at all. It's like very desperate, very kind of leggy. And as the game goes on, it'll be interesting to see if any kind of mistakes start to crop up. Yeah,
and obviously, I mean, it's not really. I mean, for Werder Bremen, it's a bit of a relegation 6-pointer. Maybe not so for Schalke, but they certainly have a slide of poor form to arrest, as we've mentioned. And you talked about Weston McKennie earlier being the key to, for Schalke at least, to unlocking the game and getting back into it. What have you seen from him so far, or of late? Does it remain the case that he looks to be the most likeliest of players to do some damage, or?
No, he was substituted about 5 minutes ago.
Oh wow!
Yeah, when he was substituted. When he was substituted, he was very, very unimpressed with the decision by David Wagner.
That wasn't an injury one; that was a tactical one.
Yeah, that was a tactical one.
Okay.
And it's been interesting because Schalke have been a lot more aggressive since he's been off the pitch. So that's kind of a different dynamic. It's normally McKinney that's quite good, kind of in terms of his pressing off the ball. But as I say, the game's becoming very, very narrow after Schalke made the change to go 4-2-3-1 at halftime. There's a lot more congestion in the central midfield. And I think what's becoming more and more obvious as the game kind of wears on and Werder Bremen are forced to make substitutions is they lack depth. And I think that's a massive reason in why they're in the situation they are. So like they've made a couple of substitutions and they're starting to look a little bit panicked, kind of both in possession and out of possession. So going forwards, if Schalke get a goal, I wouldn't kind of fancy Werder Bremen to score another one, if that makes sense. I could see Schalke probably going on to win the game.
Yeah, and I've just had a look at the substitutions you mentioned, and a lot of well-known names have been subbed off. So, I mean, I look at the lineups now, and I now look and I now turn to you. If there's any player that currently stood out for both sides, who's still on the pitch at the moment, who would that be?
In terms of the players still on, I would say I've been really impressed by Pavlenka. He's made a couple of really good saves for Werder Bremen. He's commanded his defence really well, and defensively, to be fair, the back four as it is now for Werder Bremen are defending quite well. Up front, I think Josh Sargent, when he's drifted into the wide areas, has been quite impressive again. Pavlenka's just come and claim a cross from a Schalke free kick. So, yeah, I think defensively, Werder Bremen looking pretty good, kind of going forwards. Schalke, it's very rushed, is what I would say. And not necessarily in a good way. So they're trying to up the intensity a little bit, but it's like, okay, we need to get the ball forward as soon as possible and really kind of play off the second ball. So it's becoming very, very scrappy. So it's hard to pick a player for Schalke that stands out. I think John Joe Kenny, who playing on the right-hand side, has been pretty good. But yeah, it's a little bit sparse. There's another quite nasty challenge in central midfield as well. So it's getting a little bit aggressive, which is interesting to see as well, because the games behind closed doors so far have been a little bit more sanitary. So this is the first game I've watched where it's been very much in your face. So yeah, that's to take note of.
Well, I guess it's a sign that, well, for the home side, they know they're under pressure to produce results, and I guess on the away side, it's a winnable game considering the home side's poor form. So maybe there's a bit of that in the psyche of the players at the moment. But we will come back to Luke in that game if hopefully more action takes place. Just having a look back at Mainz and Hoffenheim, and Mainz, I have to say, Hoffenheim are leading, but Mainz are giving a fair good job at the moment. They're putting in they're doing a decent performance, and if anyone's likely to score now, I would probably say Mainz. But let's look at the game that we haven't come to since the start of the second half, and that would be Hertha Berlin, Augsburg. Hertha 1-0 up. So we turn to Luke Edwards, and how's the game gone? Is it still have Augsburg kind of wrestled back a bit of control back into the game, or is it still all Hertha?
Yeah, surprisingly, this half has actually been mostly Augsburg. They've really come out firing in the second half. They've had a couple of really good opportunities, forced some top saves actually from Rune Jarstein in the Hertha Berlin goal, and Hertha are now sort of starting to realise that they do need to actually change something, because I think the main difference that we've seen from Augsburg in the second half has been the substitutions. Bringing in Niederlechner up front has really given Toruna Riga and Boyata something to think about, and they just seem to have, Augsburg, they're pressing more. They seem to have a little bit more space when they go forward that maybe they weren't afforded as much in the first half. Hertha have been kind of intent on sitting off a little bit, so it's been a combination of Augsburg deciding to put their foot on the gas and Hertha deciding to take their foot off theirs, and you can really see that in the second half, where Augsburg have really had the better of the opportunities. Hertha have now brought off Vedad Ibišević up front, and they brought on the guy that I was desperate to see from the very start. Christoph Piontek is now on the pitch. They've also brought on Matt Leckie, the Australian international. He's come on in place of Dodi Lukebakio. So yeah, but even as I say this, Augsburg still having a lot more of the pressure, a lot more of the ball than they did in the first half, and Hertha looking like they're hanging on a little bit. Nobody would have predicted this watching from the first half, but there's, if you were to bank on any side scoring next, you'd have to say Augsburg would probably go and get the equaliser. But Hertha hanging on for now. We'll see how this match ends. It's an interesting one.
Yeah, actually, it makes me smile that Matt Leckie is still playing in the Bundesliga, the Australian that I am. But yeah, you mentioned Piontek. He obviously he made an impact in the Leipzig game in midweek, scored a penalty. And certainly to me, that substitution suggests that Labadia is looking to kill the game off.
Yeah, I think so. I think what they've actually been lacking in this second half has been urgency and that bit of energy up front. Ibrahimovic, as good as he is, he's 35 years old. He doesn't have he doesn't press from the front. He's very much a guy who likes to lead the line. He's a poaching striker rather than a Roberto Firmino type striker who tries to make things happen. And I think Piontek, when he has played for Hertha this season, I mean, he is very much a poacher striker in his own way, but he has more energy. He's a very energetic player. He likes to press. He shuts off passing channels, that kind of thing, and he disrupts play quite well. And that's something we have seen in the cameos that he has had so far. So it's a substitution that makes sense, trying to defend from the front and just providing that little bit of fresh legs in the front line on behalf of Hertha. Piontek will be looking to get in some good positions because Augsburg have been prone to leaving gaps open for players to go and attack it. And I say that as he's just gone and tried to attack the ball there, but the goalkeeper for Augsburg rushes out and claims the ball. Piontek is might actually get a bit of luck in this game if he can keep running at the defense of Augsburg and keep finding little pockets of space. There's no reason why he can't go and get a goal because Hertha are very close to just going and closing out this game. They just need to weather the storm a little bit with Augsburg looking to put on a little bit more pressure.
Yeah. So that should be an interesting one. I mean, if Augsburg, as you say, have kind of worked themselves back into this half, then it should make for an interesting finale, and we'll see if Augsburg kind of go for it and put on some more attacking substitutions. But we will come back to you, Luke, should anything happen in the rest of that game. I believe there's been a change made by Hoffenheim, and I'm trying to make it. I'm trying to find it. Yes, the striker Munas Dabur has come off in place of Max Bayer. So Hoffenheim have used 4 of their changes compared to Mainz, who have used 3 of theirs, and indeed they've looked quite good, Mainz, and Hoffenheim need to be careful of not, Mainz have definitely had the ascendancy in this game, and will be interesting to see if they can break free. But of course, Hoffenheim deadly in the counter-attack, as shown by a win against Cologne. And Christoph Baumgartner's still on the pitch, and to me, he is the man who can really make things happen for the away side should anything happen. But we'll go to a quick score update. I'll just read out the scores. Wolfsburg currently held to a 1-1 draw. They come back rather to equalize against Eintracht Frankfurt. As we've talked to Luke Edwards, Hertha Berlin 1-0 up against Augsburg and looking to kill the game off against an Augsburg team who have worked themselves back into the second half. Hoffenheim also lead 1-0 away at Mainz. Mainz looking pretty good, looking certainly the more threatening team to get an equalizer, although Hoffenheim, as I just said, deadly in the counter-attack, may look to kill the game off as well. And finally, Schalke Werder Bremen, as Luke James said, Schalke interestingly gone a bit more narrow in their game plan, and both teams still fairly even in that game, and it'll be interesting to see who gets the next kind of goal there, as my Mainz Hoffenheim stream sort of crashes, but then we're back. So an interesting finale, I think, when the last 15, 20 minutes or so of the games so far, and obviously, and then later on you've got Bayern Munich against Dusseldorf on Saturday evening. This evening rather. I don't know why I'm saying Saturday evening. And then tomorrow Gladbach host Union Berlin. Dortmund travel to Paderborn, and then Monday night Leipzig finish off the match day 29 by traveling to FC Cologne. So there's the rest of the games that we had that are shown on the Bundesliga. And then next weekend, obviously the final weekend where it is the Bundesliga exclusive before the other leagues get back in. And I didn't mention it during halftime, but congratulations to Jesse Marsch and the Red Bull Salzburg team, who won 5-0, a comprehensive 5-0 in the Austrian Cup final, and claimed silverware. You'd have seen the social distancing trophy celebrations. They all kind of just stood in 3 banks of 10 or so and social distance for a while, and then eventually the hugs and the celebrations really kickstarted. So it's maybe something for note for Liverpool fans when the trophy celebration comes for the Premier League. But yeah, congratulations to Jesse Marsch and the Salzburg team for that 5-0 victory in the cup final. So with the games sort of in the last 15 minutes stage or so, it's hard to pick a game to go to now, considering they're all kind of evenly poised in terms of who's gonna score next. But we'll go back the way we came, I guess. So we'll go to Dami and talk about Wolfsburg Frankfurt, and there we go. Have you seen much? Have you seen? Is there a team that looks the more likely to win this game as the clock kind of ticks down to the last of your goal?
No, so nearly. It was a chance for Frankfurt.
Tell the right back
gets down the wings, cuts back in on his left foot, delivers a decent looking ball into the box, and I think it was Kamada. There, he tries to do Javier Hernandez-esque like backwards header. I think he completely misses it, falls to his teammate. He gets it, and he's just about tries to kind of stab the ball into the goal, but the goalkeeper comes out and again manages to smother it well. So yeah, and almost a goal for Eintracht Frankfurt. Yeah, the change now here for Wolfsburg, it's Vergust off and Jinsek on. So yeah, it seems like it's just a like for like change in that respect. But yeah, no, overall it's been quite even, to be honest with you. In terms of, should I say, goal mouth action in a sense. I mean, Wolfsburg still probably have the majority of the possession, but they haven't really created anything else since they got the equalizer. I think the closest they got was they had a free kick. No, ball was played into the box. The defender tries to is battling for the ball. I think he fouls a player in the process. The ball comes down to him and he just smashes it over the bar. But like I said, he had fouled the player in the process, so the ref brought it back for a foul. But yeah, so in terms of that, that's probably the best chance that they've had since then. But yeah, overall, it's been quite even in terms of goal mouth action. I'm just watching a replay of the earlier Frankfurt chance there. It's good. It's good goalkeeping, to be fair, for the goalkeeper. It comes out, he stands his ground, he makes himself as big as possible, doesn't go down too early, and yeah, the ball just hits him straight to the chest. But yeah, so it'll be interesting to see what the latest substitution for Wolfsburg does for the rest of the team. If it would give them a bit of a surgency here or not. But yeah, so far so good, I would say.
Yeah, and I guess, do you expect, have both teams kind of lifted in intensity as they kind of go and look for a winner, or maybe that's what is that maybe something you're expecting as the game kind of ticks on? Maybe the game needs to go up a notch in terms of speed and just urgency, I guess, as both teams kind of look for a winner.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, I guess. I think this is probably where both managers can really how should I say, earn their money in a sense. Now that just as I was about to say, now that all the teams have been given extra substitutions, it'll be key for both managers to make best use of that. And I was just saying that Frankfurt seem to be making a double, or is it? I think it's a double substitution. So Andrew Silva has just come off for Bas Dost, and Sebastian Rode has come off for Gelson Fernandez. And no, it's a triple substitution as well, actually. Sorry. And I'm just trying to figure out who the last substitution is. I think I saw a player called Toro come on, but I'm not quite sure who has come off for him. But yeah, so seems like Wolfsburg are based. I'm sorry, for Frankfurt, they've made a triple substitution. So you could say they might be. Yeah, sorry, it's Core who's come off for Toro. So yeah, triple substitution, interesting, fresh legs. Let's see if that gives them a bit of impetus or not, or if it doesn't really, change anything to the dynamic of the team as well. But yes, in these kind of situations, 77 minutes gone, obviously both teams still coming back from almost a 2.5 month layoff as well. It's obviously understandable, but that you'll be getting a lot of tired legs out here. So, players who've just come on, who are fresh and fit, let's see if they can be able to take advantage of that in the final few 12 minutes plus added time that's to be played.
Yeah, they've played. I mean, you mentioned the amount of games they've played. What, 3 games in a week? I guess since last weekend,
Yeah.
this weekend, and the midweek as well. So yeah, there's been a lot of minutes that they've racked up, and certainly a lot of squad rotation. So yeah, as you said, it'll be interesting to see this last 10 minutes if anyone can kind of pop up and be the hero for either side. So we'll come back to you, Dami. Should there be a late winner, late drama in the Wolfsburg Frankfurt game? And we've actually got. Well, yeah, this is breaking news. Reading off Twitter, reading off Rob Harris, the Associated Press sport reporter. He said the UK government has announced that elite sport events can be staged again in England from Monday without spectators, and if the coronavirus guidelines are followed. The Culture Secretary Oliver Dowden has said the wait is over. Live British sport will shortly be back on in safe and carefully controlled environments. It means that horse racing, snooker, and greyhound racing sports, unfortunately, that we don't have a lot of coverage of, they will be planned for Monday and will take place behind closed doors. And I think the Premier League chief executive Richard Masters has said they welcome the government's announcement, and yeah, they are thrilled to resume the season in just over 2 weeks' time. So there's a bit of, I wouldn't say, I mean, maybe I don't think it's shocking news to say the least, given the recent announcement of the Premier League, but it's interesting to see that other sports are being given the green light to resume again. So there we go. A little bit of extra news on the side there as we turn our attention back to Germany, and as the games kind of wind out towards the end. And again, I'm watching. Mainz are pushing for this equalizer, and definitely Hoffenheim, as we've seen with some of the other German teams that we've watched today, they are definitely in banks of 4 or 5 or whatever you want to call it, rigid defensive structures as they try and keep out and hold on for a clean sheet and 3 points, and look to, I think they can overtake Wolfsburg if I'm not mistaken, or they can at least close on the gap to Wolfsburg. So that should be an interesting one. Let's head back. We'll head back to Schalke and Werder Bremen. I'm just checking if anything's happening. So we'll go back to Luke James. Luke, no goals so far since we last caught up with you, but last 10 minutes, I guess, a bit of a last roll of the dice for Schalke.
Yeah, that's basically how the game has been playing out. Not too much has changed since we last spoke. Schalke have probably been the better team. They've had more chances, but at the same time, there have been very, very few chances. So there's not too much to report on. Something that kind of sums this game up, about kind of 10-15 minutes ago, Schalke had the opportunity to counterattack from a Werder Bremen free kick deep inside the Schalke half. The ball broke for Ahmed Kutucu, and it was, I think, 3 against 3, kind of driving into the Werder Bremen half. He got just beyond kind of the centre circle and then slowed down, did a bit of a pirouette, and the play broke down. And it's summed up Schalke's day, because they had the opportunity really to break, put the ball into the wide area and maybe put the ball into the box. They just didn't do that. They kind of thought about it too long on the ball, kind of what cost them the goal in the first half as well, just spending too much time with one player in possession, and it cost them once again. One thing to take note of as well, a slight tangent, is given the stadium's obviously empty, given there's no crowd noise to feed off as well, this has been the noisiest game so far in terms of interactions from the benches. So
really?
Yeah, by quite a significant stretch, to be honest. The Werder Bremen manager has just been given a bit of a telling off from the referee. I'm not too sure why, because I thought the decision making has been fine so far, but that's something to keep note of as well. But yeah, so far Schalke, the better team in the second half. I don't think they look too likely to score, though, if I'm being totally honest.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. You talk about noise. I had the weird experience of I was watching. It was Hoffenheim Cologne in midweek, and I watched a Fox Soccer broadcast and got the artificial crowd noise. And I'll be honest, I didn't really realize it until about 20 minutes into watching it. And I realized, hang on, where's the crowd noise coming from? And then realized it was one of those tracks, which is, yeah, it's an interesting one. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I know it's a bit of a tangent, obviously, because you're probably watching a game where there isn't any track noise on it, but yeah, it was an interesting experience, and we'll see what happens in terms of other leagues, and suddenly the Premier League choose to use it or not. But going back to your game, I know things might happen in the last 10 minutes or so, but this is a big performance for Werder Bremen in terms of their hopes of climbing out of that relegation zone.
Yeah, definitely. Werder Bremen have been really, really good defensively. One thing that I noticed as well, if you look at the age of the back four for Werder Bremen, so Moisander is 34, Langkamp is 32, Salisi is 33, and then the left back Friedel is only 22. So they've got a really quite old back line. And until I Googled it, to be honest, I didn't realise they've handled Schalke brilliantly. They look really, really confident, both kind of tracking back and with the play in front of them. As the second half's progressed, they've kind of started to drop a little bit deeper, but Werder Bremen is still kind of, the point of engagement is still quite high up the pitch. So Schalke haven't really been given any territory for free. A second half substitute there, Selke, has just gone through and had a chance for Werder Bremen, but it was a good tackle there from the covering Schalke defender. But yeah, it's just been the case in the second half. Bremen have done enough, and this is all they need to do. And if they manage to hold on for a 1-0 win, it will be huge, especially if Fortuna Düsseldorf aren't able to find a miraculous win later on this evening.
Yeah, absolutely, and we will see. I mean, it's too early to definitely call this game done and dusted, but we will see if the away side hold on. So we'll come back to you, Luke, probably at full time, or if something crazy happens, as it is in the world of football. Let's go back to Wolfsburg, Frankfurt, and let's talk to Dami. Let's talk to Dami and just see how it is. I mean, Dami, your game is still it's still 1-1 with a goal.
No, we've got a goal actually. Yeah, it's a goal for Frankfurt.
Frankfurt, wow.
And it's Kamada. Yeah, it's Kamada who has got the goal. So a ball comes in from the left hand side, I think. It falls to the substitute, Bas Dost. He manages just to cushion the header back into the path of the onrushing Kamada. And as he's coming in, he's one-on-one with the goalkeeper, and he just has to make sure he gets a good connection on the ball, and he does so and just guides it into the far corner. And yes, it's a goal. It's 2-1 to Frankfurt, and as just as I expected, one of the substitutes have had a big impact in the creation of that goal.
And would you say Frankfurt, do they deserve to be in front now? Do they deserve that late winner, or has it been kind of even and it's taken one moment of inspiration to pretty much win the game?
I think it's been a relatively even game. I wouldn't say one team has deserved it more than the other team have. Obviously both teams have kind of set up with two different kind of strategies in terms of how to win this game. Frankfurt definitely came more with, kind of sitting back and being able to hit them on any counter attacks. And Wolfsburg have tried to take, the game to them. Doesn't make one tactic better than the other. But I think both teams have kind of deployed their tactics to a reasonable standard, So I wouldn't say it's a case of one deserved it than the other. But it's good for Frankfurt, to be honest with you. They did well in being able to kind of stem the tide, especially after Wolfsburg got that equalizer, because it could have been very easy for them to just possibly capitulated, especially seeing as Wolfsburg would have been on their with the momentum. But they managed to steady the ship, managed to calm everything down, get back to what you could call a neutral kind of state, which suits them a lot more than it would suit Wolfsburg. And yeah, they now managed to capitalize on it with the goal, and they're leading 2-1.
There we go. And well, we'll wait to see if there will be even more last minute drama or not in this game that has kind of gone both ways. But we'll come back to you, Dami. If not, if nothing happens, obviously full time, but hopefully we might have some late drama in that game. So as we said, Frankfurt 2-1, and indeed in terms of the table, they jumped to 12th, so that is a big result for them, and it pushes Augsburg and Union Berlin down. Union Berlin now at 14th spot. They obviously play Gladbach tomorrow afternoon, a game that I don't think you'd have them as favourites for, certainly looking at Gladbach, but yeah, it definitely puts pressure on them to get a result. And as the games kind of peter out, let's go to the other game that we haven't well, we've been keeping an eye on it, but we haven't talked to him in a bit. Let's talk to Luke Edwards, Hertha and Augsburg. Has there been a lot going on in this game, or has it kind of just been now? Is it just kind of Hertha settling for that 1-0 and Augsburg
It's
don't
absolutely
have
not.
enough?
Augsburg have kind of had a bit of as you came to me last time, Josh. Things did start to settle down a little bit, but Augsburg have really tried to get themselves back in the game. They had a very good penalty shout. Ball came in, hit. Torino Riga went to block the ball by diving in, and he kind of lands on it as he goes in for like a sliding challenge, which is very similar to the one that we saw again in the Bayern Dortmund game. I think it was on Jerome Boateng where he had a penalty shot given against him. They VAR didn't review it in the end. It was the same instance here, so they're being consistent with it. But the debate is still there as to, he is kind of blocking the ball from going into the box with his arm. Does this constitute a handball or not? Is it in an actual position? That kind of thing. So yeah, that's decided not to be given. But Augsburg absolutely just found like way more space in this second half, and Hertha just don't seem to have any composure in their side. There's nobody really taking control of the game. Christian Piontek just pick up a needless yellow card after he pulled back one of the Augsburg players. I'm massively impressed with there's a guy called Ruben Vargas who plays for Augsburg. He plays on the left-hand side. He's been really threatening the second half. They've largely been able to nullify him, but he's been kind of the outlet, the player that Augsburg have been looking to make things happen. And they've just had pretty much complete control of this second half. Hertha haven't really broken into the opponent penalty area in a good sort of half an hour. They did have one brief foray, but they haven't really matched anything like that since. And it's been more or less all Augsburg. Hertha really hanging on by the skin of their teeth. For their sake, they'll be really hoping that they can just get this over the line. I don't think they'll be gunning for a second goal at all. But Augsburg are just... Augsburg have just absolutely rattled the bar. It's still not clear. They have picked the ball up here, and Justin's managed to collect it calmly. But oh my word. I believe that was... I'm just going to get my player numbers up. Yes, shots just coming from Marco Richter on the side of it. Just I suppose it picks it on the half volley. Justin's nowhere near it and absolutely thumps the bar and goes out into the penalty. They managed to get it clear in the end. Justin picks it up, but yeah, the closest that Augsburg have come this game to scoring, they've rattled the bar there. And Hertha, I was literally saying as they hit the bar that Hertha were, hanging by the skin of their teeth, and it really is the case here. I can't call if they're going to get an equaliser or not, Augsburg, but they've had an absolutely magnificent second half, particularly considering how much of a bombardment they were given in the first half. So, yeah, lots of positives to take from this one. Hertha, yeah, squeaky bum time for them.
Yeah, and it might be, like we said with the other game, it might just be the fatigue factor. Obviously 3 games in a week is a lot of football. So yeah, maybe they're running out of gas at the moment, but they're doing just enough, as it seems, to hold off Augsburg from getting that equalizer. So we'll come back to Luke probably at the end of the game, unless something crazy happens, as we said. Just watched Hoffenheim keeper Baumann just completely punch away a corner from Mainz, and bodies were flying everywhere. So in that game, it's also on a knife edge for Hoffenheim. At least they lead 1-0, and they are hoping to capitalize on Wolfsburg's defeat in terms of the race for the top 6. And indeed, they go level on points if the result stands. So a lot of interesting implications for the table. Even if it's not the most exciting at the top of the table, there's certainly implications at the bottom and mid-table, as if the results stay as they are. And just watching the Mainz coach, I'm just getting his name, Achim Bielodza. He looks stressed, as does his counterpart Alfred Schroeder. He too looks very much hoping that this game kind of comes to an end as soon as they can. But games are starting to come to an end, and indeed it is finished 1-0 Hoffenheim. and Hoffenheim, big win, a big fist pump by Alfred Schroeder, the Hoffenheim coach. He knows what that result is, and Mainz it's a bit of an opportunity missed from what I've seen. Florian Muller certainly he saved a penalty in the first half, so he certainly had a great performance and did everything he could. But unfortunately, Hoffenheim take the 1-0 win, and I believe, and I'm looking at it, I think games are going to come to an end. Let's switch over to Luke Edwards and see. I mean,
Piontek's
you
in,
say,
and I think that's finish. Unless he's onside. Piontek has made it 2-0.
It's a goal
to Hertha Berlin. Yeah, it's a goal. That's it. It's game over. Hertha catch from the counter attack. It's the first real opportunity they've had all of this half. Augsburg will be absolutely gutted. They played so well in the second half, but Piontek, so they pick up the ball in their own half. Hertha, it's hooked over the top, and it goes into Piontek. It looks like he's just onside. Look at the shadows, and it's a sweaty goal played across the front of the goalkeeper, and Piontek just slides it from the edge of the 18-yard box into the bottom corner. Clinical strike from a clinical finisher. That's going to do his confidence a world of good. 2 goals in 2 games now for the Polish striker. And he busts out his famous celebration, which I absolutely love. I'm not a massive fan of celebrations in general, but I do like Piontek's celebration. And it's good to see that he's going to get a goal. And Hertha Berlin 2-0. Job done at the end of the day. Doesn't tell the whole story. Augsburg, based on the second half, deserved to get a point from this match, but I don't think anyone in Berlin's really going to be complaining about it. They're desperate for results, particularly when they're missing big players like Mateusz Cunha and Marvin Plattenhardt. So they'll be absolutely delighted. Bruno Labbadia seems to have instilled a bit of a bit of luck, but also a real fighting spirit in this side, because they could have very easily gone 1-0 down. They could have easily conceded an equaliser in this match, but they haven't managed it, and they managed to go and get themselves a goal at the end, so they'll be happy with that.
Yeah, and I guess I think the games have now come to a full-time end. I guess yours is just about finishing off with that goal, obviously adding a bit of time on, but it seems to me that, judging from that, Hertha, they got the early goal, they were in control, and then Augsburg kind of did throw the kitchen sink at them in the middle, and then towards in the second half, and then in the end, Hertha just were able to just keep their composure and finish the game off. Is that an accurate kind of description?
That's exactly it. Augsburg were very much at the Alamo with a 1-0 90th minute. Piontek just had so much space. They had so much space to run into because Augsburg had to push their back line pretty much onto the halfway line. And all that happened was that actually the Augsburg back line were kind of so far into the Hertha Berlin half that Hertha were able to situate one of their forwards directly behind their backline and still remain onside. So when the ball was looped over the top, they were in. There was nothing really between them and the goal other than the goalkeeper. And Augsburg tried to get back in time, but Piontek, fresh legs, able to get up and sprint faster than any of the other backline that Augsburg had. And very neat finish. As I said, doesn't really tell the story of the match. Augsburg, exceptional, dare I say it, in the second half. With a bit of luck, they get a point. They might even get 3 points on another day, because the second half, Hertha didn't really show up. They were just keen on very much on sitting back and trying not to concede chances, even though they did end up conceding quite a few chances. But you got to ride your luck sometimes, and Hertha will be very happy with the result today, and also very much relieved.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, big 3 points. They kind of continue their march up the mid-table, and I'm just checking the table now.
If Wolfsburg looks set to drop points against Frankfurt, there could be. I believe that this win would leave them just 4 points off Wolfsburg. If they continue to win games, there is. Which is crazy considering we were talking about Hertha as being potential relegation candidates before this break. It now looks like they could maybe. If the results go their way, they could potentially worm their way into a European spot, which would be absolutely massive for them. Not just in terms of contrasting the start of the season with the struggles they had under Jurgen Klinsmann, but pressing on for next season and developing them as a squad, and trying to get in new players and keeping players like Mateusz Cunha on board if they're able to provide their best players with European football.
Yeah, he's been linked with a move to Inter Milan, I saw in midweek. So yeah, absolutely, European football is it would be a huge boost for them in terms of retaining players and also looking at bringing in other ones. We'll continue the kind of roundup full-time reports. I'll just give some brief words about Mainz and Hoffenheim and just say that I think from what I obviously wasn't able to fully keep an eye on the game, but I think Hoffenheim, they got their goal, and then similar to Hertha Berlin, Mainz in the Hertha Berlin game, Mainz kind of threw everything they had at them, but Hoffenheim were able to hold on, and they just had the resolve, and unfortunately for Mainz, they couldn't break through. But I do think Mainz, they are near the bottom of the table, but they did put in a very good shift, and if they can produce performances like that, I do think that they have a shot of. I mean, obviously they're in a safe position at the moment, but I do think they have a shot of kind of ensuring that safety, shall we say, by getting some victories across the board. So we've got Luke here. We'll bring in Dami to just give some final thoughts, I guess, on the Wolfsburg-Frankfurt game. A relatively even game. Obviously, Frankfurt took the lead, then Wolfsburg fought back, got an equalizer, but then Frankfurt, in the end, was able to get that winner. Was it? What were your major thoughts and takeaways from the game in general?
I think it was. I don't really think it was a game that would really tell you much, that you didn't really know about the two teams in a sense. Maybe you could say it's a bit disappointing on Wolfsburg's part, considering they were at home, and obviously they are quite a few places higher up than Frankfurt in the league table. They probably would have expected or seen this as kind of like, or at least a winnable game. You know what I mean? So they might be a bit disappointed in that part, but at the same time, though, you have to say that Frankfurt too played well, in my opinion. They had a game plan, they stuck to it well. They did what the manager asked of them, and they managed to show that final bit of quality thanks to the link up between Bas Dost and Kamada, and to manage to get the winner. So, like I said, overall, quite an even game, and obviously Frankfurt will be absolutely delighted with the win, especially with them considering being away from home as well, and obviously come to this game as underdogs.
Yeah, absolutely, and a big win for Frankfurt. They obviously jumped to 12th, and Wolfsburg are costly dropped points in terms of the race for the Europa League. So we will, and as Luke said, it opens the door for Hertha Berlin. It opens the door for Hoffenheim. It'll be interesting to see what happens there. We'll bring in Luke James, who did Schalke Werder Bremen. And Luke, I've got two stats here from the game, or not from the game, but I guess for both sides. Werder Bremen, it's their third straight clean sheet. The first time they've done that under their current coach, Florian Kohfeldt. And then as for Schalke, 11 games without a win. So we talk about Europa League teams. They're suddenly falling away in that race. But what were your major thoughts and takeaways from this game?
It was a really interesting game. I think Werder Bremen definitely deserved the win. Florian Kohfeldt set up his team perfectly. They defended really, really well in the second half. Schalke look pretty abysmal, in all honesty. They're not looking great at all. In terms of like standout players, Alexander Nubel for Schalke, really, really good in goal. He didn't stand a chance with the goal that Werder Bremen did score, but apart from that, very, very confident collecting crosses. His distribution was really good, so that was good to see. The other team for Werder Bremen, Kevin Vogt, was really brilliant at the base of the midfield diamond. He swept up really well. He won lots of interceptions in the middle of the park, so that was interesting as well. Towards the end of the game, this was a little bit odd, and it's kind of a symptom of the fact that there's now more substitutions being allowed. It's a Saku, who came on at half-time for Werder Bremen, was subbed off with about 5 minutes to go. And that was just after he had a really good opportunity to score as well. I don't think it was based on his performance that it was subbed. I think it was just a time-wasting strategy. But that kind of caught my eye. But going forwards, Werder Bremen don't look like a team that will be relegated. They're really playing quite well. They look good going forwards. They look comfortable in defence. It was a good performance. Their goalkeeper Pavlenka looked really, really solid between the posts. Going forwards, even if Werder Bremen were to finish in 16th and had to go through the relegation promotion playoff, I think they'd probably beat Stuttgart or Hamburg. So that will be concerning for those teams and definitely for the teams above them in the table at the moment.
Yeah. Again, another result that had huge ramifications at the bottom of the table, and also, I guess, in that 7th to top 10th spots as well. That will probably do it for us. My thanks go to Luke Edwards, Luke James, and Dami for coming on and covering the 3 of the 4 games that we had this Saturday afternoon. We will be back next week for the final Bundesliga exclusive Super Saturday. I think we've got late. I'm going to have a look at the games briefly, but I think we've got some exciting ones. I think Leverkusen will be back in action at the time slot. We've got Leverkusen hosting Bayern Munich, so that's a big game. The next weekend, you got Leipzig hosting Paderborn, Frankfurt hosting Mainz, and Düsseldorf hosting Hoffenheim. So obviously the Leverkusen Munich Bayern game, big game. If you want alternative commentary to BT Sport, come watch us next weekend, and we will be back then. So thanks to everyone for watching along, and we will see you next weekend.